Welcome to your Arizona Cardinals update. Today, we're going to go ahead and provide you everything that you need to know heading into Week 3 versus the San Francisco 49ers. We heard from Kyler Murray, Drew Petzing, and Marvin Harrison Jr. about the target share. Are the Arizona Cardinals going to be able to fix their offensive woes? And we're also going to be diving into something that I just caught today that might actually shock you. All that and so much more. Let's dive into it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into another video. Definitely do me a huge favor, smack up that like button and subscribe for more Arizona Cardinals content. On this channel, we're covering the Arizona Cardinals news, breaking news, conversational pieces, everything surrounding your favorite team. So subscribe it up. It's absolutely for free. But today, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be diving into the latest press conferences from Drew Petzing, Kyler Murray, as well as Marvin Harrison Jr. And it seems like they're not worried about the current state of the offense, where there's a lot of Arizona Cardinal fans talking about the lack of targets for their wide receiver one, but they don't seem very worried. So we're going to be diving into what exactly they said, as well as some big updates that we ended up missing yesterday, now heading into today for the Arizona Cardinals heading into Week 3. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and look at this report here from Adam Schefter. Now, I don't think this is going to happen, ladies. I'm going to be real here. We got a report coming from Adam Schefter yesterday saying this: the 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy will be limited in practice today due to his toe and left shoulder injury. Now, I saw some other reports floating around that there's a possibility. Kyle Shanahan came out and said there's a possibility about potentially Brock Purdy coming out here in Week 3. Now, yes, the turf toe that Brock Purdy is currently enduring right now is not as bad as Joe Burrow, which he has now had surgery on his turf toe. Now we're dealing with, kind of mind games when it comes down to the San Francisco 49ers. I do not think there's a world that Brock Purdy will be playing in this game. Now, if he does, I'll be absolutely shocked. But I think in the real world right now, they're probably going to be resting him for at least one more week heading into the following week for their Week 4 matchup. They're going to really have to evaluate and really kind of figure out what's going to happen. But I do believe the Cardinals are going to be facing Mac Jones in his second start of the 2025 season. And overall, I think he did a pretty stand-up job. So I don't think it's going to be one of those things where the Cardinals should be playing him differently. This is a very capable quarterback that threw 3 touchdowns last week and over 250 yards over the air. So we definitely got to keep our eyes peeled. Now let's go ahead and talk about some Arizona Cardinal news. We ended up hearing that Darren Hall has now been elevated to the Arizona Cardinals active roster. If you guys did not catch yesterday's update, we got some pretty big news about Garrett Williams as well as LJ Collier now going to IR, but it has kept open that they potentially could return later on in the season. Will Johnson didn't practice yesterday, but Max Melton did practice. Now, Will Johnson was asked if he feels optimistic about, starting this weekend, and Will Johnson came out and says, I'm always optimistic about everything, right? So, and with a little smirk to boot as well. So I'm not sure if he's kind of letting us know that he might play, right? But honestly, right now it's up in the air. Jonathan Gannon did rule Max Melton as well as Will Johnson questionable heading into Week 3. So as of right now, we are going to have to kind of wait out and see how it all shakes out. But this is absolutely a move that a lot of Cardinal fans is really excited about. Darren Hall has had a really good preseason. And honestly, if you haven't gone to training camp or know this guy, like seen him on the field, he's got such an infectious personality. Like, it's so amazing. He's got a really good, I don't know, it just kind of seems like a real good locker room type of guy at the end of the day. So I'm really happy that the Cardinals are elevating him to potentially put him on this, this roster as maybe more of a depth piece more than anything. Because if the Cardinals are missing one or two pieces, they're probably going to most likely be running with Denzel Burke and potentially Keitrell Clark, former starter for the Cardinals in the 2023 season. But I'm really excited that we're elevating him and at least giving him an opportunity, because Garrett Williams is going to at least miss a total of 4 weeks. So I'm happy about it. Let's see what Darren Hall does if given the opportunity. Let's move on over to this next update here. Ian Rappaport came out yesterday and said that the Arizona Cardinals are losing one of their practice squad players. Ladies and gentlemen, this one kind of hurts me, which was a UDFA this last year and had a pretty solid training camp. He didn't really show up very much in preseason, but there was a lot of high praises for Elijah Simmons, defensive lineman, and he is now finding his way on another team because it seems like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, are now signing him to their active roster, completely plucking him away from our practice squad, and now he's landing with the Tampa Bay Bucks. Let's move on over to the last update before we hear what Kyler Murray and Drew Petzing had to say, and this is going to be the last update that ended up happening earlier this morning. Darren Urban came out and saying this: the Arizona Cardinals are re-signing defensive lineman Keon Barrs to their practice squad. Barrs was with the team in preseason. And yes, he was. This is a guy that also played in the UFL as well and actually had a pretty good preseason for the Arizona Cardinals. So I don't know if the plan is to elevate. I'm not sure if they're just looking for, to fill up their practice squad. Whatever the situation is, he's got comfortability with his coaching staff. He's got comfortability with this roster. So overall, I'm really excited to see what happens here with Keon Barrs. Now, let's move on over to what Kyler Murray, as well as Drew Petzing and Marvin Harrison Jr. had to say about the lack of targets for wide receiver number one. Now let's go and shift our focus on over to talking about what Drew Petzing ended up having to say, as well as Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. about the lack of targets for their wide receiver number one in Marvin Harrison Jr. We're going to be diving into that here pretty soon, but let me give a quick shout out here to the sponsors of the AZ Sports Fan here on YouTube. Sleeper. The NFL season is here, which means you now have a chance to 100 times your cash on daily football fantasy. Pick on stats for these stars like touchdowns, passing yards, receiving yards, fantasy points, and more for up to 100 times your payout on Sleeper. Get your picks right and you can win big. Use promo code AZSF and you'll get up to 100% deposit match up to $100 on your first initial deposit by using promo code AZSF upon downloading the app. Make sure you check out Sleeper. Everything will be in the description below of this video. Ladies and gentlemen, let's dive right into what Kyler Murray, Drew Petzing, as well as Marvin Harrison Jr. had to say about his lack of targets. We're going to first start off with Drew Petzing's clip because he ended up talking on Tuesday. I didn't really get a chance to kind of, deep dive into what he said on content, but this is what we're going to be doing here right now. So this is what Drew Petzing had to say about the lack of targets for wide receiver number one in Marvin Harrison Jr.
JG said yesterday that this offense is best at its best when Marv is getting his touches, but at the same time you can't force the ball to him. Like how do those two things work together? I mean, if you need to get the ball to him, but you also can't force the ball to him, how does that work? It does seem like two ideas.
I always say a lot of that's going to be on me for play calling and trying to make sure he's early in the progression. But if they're going to take him away, I think Kyler's done a great job of moving on and getting the ball to other players and making sure, as we talked about earlier, that those players are where they need to be and ready for those opportunities when they present themselves. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to take a guy away or really overemphasize that on your end, yeah, we still want to make sure that we do things to move him around the formation to make him difficult to defend. But we're also, as the play is called, not going to just once the play is snapped, just throw the ball to him at all costs. I think that creates some issues and always want to stay away from those type of things.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's some very valid points here from Drew Petzing. I think there's a lot of frustrated Cardinal fans right now because of the lack of targets to their wide receiver number one. I am one of those guys that are included in that whole situation because we did do a deep dive in my last video in terms of really kind of looking at our wide receiver one compared to other wide receiver ones in the NFL. And there's a big difference in terms of targets headed over his way. So there is a lot of lack of opportunity for Marvin Harrison Jr. to really flourish into that wide receiver number one that we drafted with the 4th overall pick that everybody was kind of claiming as a generational talented wide receiver. And as of right now, with this offense that we're seeing, although Drew Petzing does make sense in terms of you can't force the ball to him, there needs to be specific plays that are getting the ball to him, right? Like those screen passes. Heck, I would even take a jet sweep, maybe those quick hook routes, right? Plays designated for your wide receiver one to get the ball quick, early, as well as in a good dosage for him to impact the game. Now, we did hear Marvin Harrison Jr. speak about this as well. We're going to be listening in on his clips a little later on. Let's first dive right into what Kyler Murray ended up having to say about the lack of targets for Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yesterday, that you can't just throw the ball to Marv every down.
Yeah.
But do you feel like you should have more targets in a game right now?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking.
Yeah. I say it every time. Like, do I wish all of them could get 10 targets a game? Of course. There's only one ball. We've been playing this game for a long time. We all understand how it goes. Some days he's going to get 10, some days he might get 3, whatever it is, and Mike might get 8. You never know. But each one of those guys are ready to make plays and do their job at a high level.
And now I got to give credit over to Kyler Murray as well as Drew Petzing. They do have the exact same, I'm not gonna say like media talk, but the same kind of message between it, right? Like they don't want to force it to Marv, which is absolutely fine. I get it, right? And I'm not one of those guys that are like every single play you're gonna throw the ball, it's gonna go to Marv. No, I mean obviously that's not gonna happen. You do not want to seem one-sided in terms of your one weapon, right? But I think when it all comes down to it is that the Arizona Cardinals offense, and this is even tailing back to last year, the fact that we've been dealing with this for over a year now, right? So we're hearing all these things that are being said about, hey, you're making all the sense in the world, but why it hasn't been fixed yet, right? Now the comment about, there's going to be some games where Marvin Harrison Jr. gets 4 targets and Michael Wilson gets 8. That's the problem. We're not seeing that, right? It almost kind of seems like this offense runs through 2 people and really 2 people only, and that's going to be Trey McBride as well as Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, of course, Trey McBride is always going to eat. He's always going to continue to get his receptions and targets, but the whole Marvin Harrison Jr. in week 2, we were really hoping that the Arizona Cardinals were going to be able to continue to feed him and hopefully having him be a bigger impact than he actually was in week 2. Now, I think one of the big reasons why we're talking about this as much is because, yes, the Cardinals are 2-0, and I think we should be basking in the glory of that. But maybe the situation landed the way that it did because the Cardinals were 27-3 at one point, right? And we were absolutely obliterating this Carolina Panthers team. So maybe when the Arizona Cardinals got the ball back and then the Carolina Panthers were kind of clawing their way back in, we played a little bit more conservative, right? We weren't throwing the ball down the field. We weren't going for those big chunk plays. That can be a factor as to maybe why there was a lack of target share to Marvin Harrison Jr. in week 2 compared to week 1, because I was proud of Marvin Harrison Jr. and what he ended up doing, right? Now, also in week 2, he did get a really, really good PI called, for him in his favor that really helped the Arizona Cardinals get on their side of the field to obviously score some points. But at the end of the day, we are hearing a lot of the same talk over and over again, which, like I said, I do not have any issue with it, but I do not want to see a world where you have Marvin Harrison Jr. only getting 4 targets because that's the way the game is played. And like I said, this is your wide receiver number 1. Like, this is your best weapon. It's not like you have a T. Higgins opposite side of Marvin Harrison Jr. I think everybody can say a consensus. Is Michael Wilson a wide receiver 2? I don't know. I mean, some people have him as a borderline 2. Some people are saying he's more of a 3, right? So it's not like we have a dynamite number 2 opposite side of Marvin. He is your best wide receiver on this roster. And of course, Trey McBride's probably your best pass catcher on this roster. So I don't like this approach. I would like it a lot more if it was fixed. The problem is that we played one of the worst teams or 2 of the worst teams in the NFL, or at least projectedly, and we have not looked that great. So let's see what week 3 holds. Let's see what week 4 holds against the Seattle Seahawks. Will this offense get better? Well, let's see exactly what happens. Marvin Harrison Jr. was also asked about this exact question about the lack of target shares, and this is what Marvin Harrison Jr. had to say.
The conversation about you needing more targets per game. We're on the outside talking about.
Yeah, that's a silly conversation, really. We're 2-0. That's the most important thing. We got two big games coming up. One big game this week, so that's really my only focus.
Here's the thing. Marvin Harrison Jr. is as humble as they come. He really is. He's as humble as they come. I don't think he's a me type of guy. He's not a diva when it comes down to it. Now, he might be really early in his career. Maybe it might change in year 3, year 4. Now, even our great Larry Fitzgerald had diva tendencies when he used to play with Kurt Warner because he wanted the ball in his hand. But what you're hearing from Marvin Harrison Jr. saying that it's almost silly, right? Because we're 2-0 at the end of the day, right? He's not really thinking about more targets, but the humility and the humbleness of what we're hearing from Marvin Harrison Jr., that's not being reciprocated amongst the NFL. We have a rookie in Ashton Jeanty already coming to the media and saying this: I don't think you draft a guy like me to not give me carries and touches. I'm ready for the responsibility. So do I want Marvin Harrison Jr. to be a little bit more like this? I don't know. I mean, maybe, but at the end of the day, we are 2-0. So that is probably the most important thing for Arizona Cardinal fans heading into week 3. We're just trying to prepare for the worst. I guess is what we're trying to do. Like, we're Cardinal fans. We know, like, we're 2-0, but we also don't want to buy into the thing of we're a top 10 team, right? Because what have you really proved, right? You beat on 2 teams that are potentially ranked in the late 20s, right? And projected to be somewhere in the top 2026 NFL draft. So it's not that much of an accomplishment, but I'm really excited to see what the Arizona Cardinals are going to be doing in week 3 and week 4 against a very tough division rival. Now let's move on over to this last thing that I wanted to talk about here. I ended up seeing this graph here on NFL explosive plays, and honestly, this kind of shocked me and it kind of simmered me down just a little bit. Not a lot, but when you're actually seeing it like this broken down to every single team in the NFL, it kind of gives you a little bit of a sigh of relief because the Arizona Cardinals are not the worst team in terms of explosive plays. I thought we were probably down there with, the Cincinnati Bengals, which honestly, I'm actually really surprised that the Cincinnati Bengals are here. But the way that this graph is broken down is you got rushing plays with if you have more than 10 yards on a rush, that counts as a big time play. And then the receiving game, if you have more than 20 yards, that counts as a big time play for the receiving. Now, this third column in big plays is just an accumulation of the rush as well as the receiving. So that's how they get 19, right? So Baltimore Ravens, they are leading 19 over everybody with big time plays. And that's probably because they got Lamar Jackson as well as they got Derrick Henry over there. So not shocking there at all. But if you look at this list here and where the Cardinals are standing, they're sitting at 10. So they got 6 big time plays in the rushing game, and then they got 4 big time plays in the receiving game, right? In the passing game. So this isn't shocking to me looking at this, right, in face value because we were supposed to be a run heavy offense. Like that is our identity for the Arizona Cardinals. But look at the teams that we're seeing within this range as well, right? You got the Cardinals, the 49ers, the Seahawks, and the Philadelphia Eagles. The teams below them, you got the Patriots, the Saints, the Vikings, the Steelers, the Dolphins, which they're kind of a mess this year. The Panthers, the Browns, the Titans, and the Bengals. So the Cardinals are nowhere near the bottom, right? Like they're not in the 6 range. They are at the 10 range. Now, it seems like what's average right now is probably going to be a little bit of an uptick to where the Cardinals are at right now. So maybe 11, 12 is probably where if you're a good team, you're probably going to want to be somewhere in that range, right? In that realm. The Cardinals are just a little below that specific I guess ranking when it comes down to most big time plays in the 2025 season so far. So this kind of put me a little of ease, like not extremely, but a little bit, right? The way that it broke down, I think the Arizona Cardinals are right where they should be. But of course, we would love to see more like the 12 explosive plays, right? Specifically in the passing game. If this looked more like 6 and 5, I think that would be a lot more confident heading into week 3 or week 4 versus the Seattle Seahawks. But at the end of the day, we got to give credit to where credit is due. And I did look at this game versus the Carolina Panthers. In the first half, we were dominating this team. We absolutely were. The Arizona Cardinals were dominating the Carolina Panthers. And there was some pretty big time plays from Kyler Murray. Overall, he had a good game with the exception of the interception that was thrown, right? And that we're good at in terms of the run. It hasn't been as great as we thought it was going to be, right? So yes, we have a couple big time, runs. Now, please also keep in mind on this graphic that we just saw, Kyler Murray's been using his legs a lot more. So this is not coming straight from running backs, right? You also had Trey Benson, which is said to be your running back too. He had an explosive run as well. So Kyler Murray using his legs as well as Trey Benson using his legs. That's why we're probably that high when it comes down to the explosive plays in the rushing attack. So if it wasn't for Kyler, we probably wouldn't be that high. Ladies and gentlemen, what are your overall thoughts on this graph? What are your overall thoughts on what Kyler, Drew, as well as Marvin Harrison Jr. ended up having to say? Let me know in the comments below. Appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. Have a great rest of your day, and go Cardinals.